Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Asphalian's webinar, Stay Ahead of Pharmacovigilance Inspections, Strategic Tips for Success. Before starting, a couple of things to take into consideration. The webinar will last for about 30 minutes. In case you have any questions, please submit them in the chat and we'll reply them later by email. We will also send you the presentation as well as a link to the recording shortly. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Marta Gonzalez, Drug Safety Manager. Marta has a PhD in biochemistry and molecular and cellular biology. She holds solid experience in pharmacovigilance audits, medical writing, and in overall pharmacovigilance activities. In today's webinar, she will go beyond the basics, helping you anticipate risks, understand the most common findings, and strengthen your system before an inspection takes place. Our colleague Alicia will talk briefly about Asphalion Safety Services. Alicia, please.
Thank you very much, Lydia, for the kind introduction, and thank you all for attending today. Welcome to this webinar where our expert Marta will guide us through the key requirements for successfully navigating pharmacovigilance inspections. She will share practical insights and strategic tips to help you stay inspection ready at all times. I truly hope you enjoy this session with us. Before handing over to Marta, I would like to briefly introduce Asphalion, who we are, and a brief summary of our capabilities. Here in Asphalion, we are a leading consultancy company specialized in providing regulatory, scientific, and safety support to pharmaceutical and biotech companies. We operate globally with offices in Barcelona, Madrid, Munich, and London. Founded in the year 2000, we have more than 25 years of experience in the industry. Today, our team consists of over 190 professionals, and we have supported more than 1,000 clients across 5,000 projects. Focusing on pharmacovigilance, we have a dedicated team of 28 experts who act as a one-stop shop, delivering comprehensive support throughout the entire product lifecycle in a global context. In this sense, we can operate as the pharmacovigilance department for our clients, taking on QPPV responsibilities, designing tailored pharmacovigilance systems, or managing all routine activities. Or, alternatively, we can provide ad hoc support when needed or support with specific activities. Also, we provide strategic support for companies that wish to maintain and strengthen their own in-house system. In addition, we leverage digital tools to optimize our processes and stay at the forefront of innovation, including the application of artificial intelligence and automation in areas such as global and local literature screening, safety writing, PIV intelligence, and social media monitoring. Currently, we manage pharmacovigilance activities for more than 1,000 products, including medicinal products, medical devices, veterinary products, or food supplements, always guided by the highest quality standards. Now, when it comes to pharmacovigilance inspections, we understand that they are critical aspects for any organization. At Asphalion, we support companies throughout the entire inspection process. Whether you are preparing for an upcoming inspection or simply aiming to ensure that your system is always inspection ready. We do this by providing pre-inspection support to assess and strengthen your system and ensure QPPV readiness, offering strategic guidance during inspection, and supporting post-inspection activities, including kappa plan development and follow-up. As you all know, staying prepared is essential to successfully navigate any pharmacovigilance inspection. And as we will emphasize throughout today's session, inspections should always be seen as an opportunity for continuous improvement. And now I will hand over to my colleague Marta, who will walk you through this topic in more details. Thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed the session today.
Thank you very much, Alicia. First of all, I would like to thank everyone and to welcome everyone to this webinar in which we will review how to face PV inspections. Let's start with the agenda. We will start by reviewing the legal framework and the objective. After that, we will talk about the general aspects, what to do before the inspections, during and after the inspections. We will also review key recommendations and some key points to success. And finally, we will have a little bit about common inspections findings. Okay, let's start with the objective and with the legal framework. The objective of pharmacovigilance inspections is to determine whether a marketing authorization holder complies with the pharmacovigilance obligations established in the European Union and to identify and address non-compliance that may pose a risk to public health. For this purpose, objective evidence is reviewed. How is conducted a PV inspection? How a PV inspection is conducted? Such inspections are conducted by inspectors appointed by the competent regulatory authorities and empowered to inspect their premises, records, documents, and the pharmacovigilance system master file, the PSMF, of the marketing authorization holder or of any company contracted by the marketing authorization holder to perform those activities. In the European Union context, inspections are coordinated at European Union level, but they are conducted by national competent authorities. It is important to note that the authority responsible for inspecting the marketing authorization holder is usually linked to the location of the pharmacovigilance system master file or where the PV system is based. How is a PV inspection notified? Continuing with the general aspects, marketing authorization holders are usually notified of inspections. Well, inspections usually start by requesting for the PSMF by the agency. Okay, the agency requests the marketing authorization holder to provide them the PSMF. The authority normally gives 7 calendar days to submit this PSMF. Therefore, it is very important that the marketing authorization holder keep this PSMF updated with the latest information regarding the PV system. After that, the PSMF is usually reviewed by the authorities within around 2 weeks. Finally, the marketing authorization holder receives the inspection notice. This inspection notice includes the name roles and the position of the inspectors, the inspection agenda, including the date and duration of the inspection, and the purpose of the inspection. It is important to note that a PSMF request does not guarantee that an inspection will take. However, it is often a strong indicator that one may be planned. Now, how a PV inspection is structured? Once the inspection has been notified and the marketing authorization holder has received the agenda, this agenda is to be reviewed by the QPPB. This revision will include the confirmation that all issues to be reviewed apply by regulation. In addition, a specific team should be established for the inspection. It is worth noting that all members must be available during the inspection. It is very important. There should be an inspection leader who will accompany the inspectors through the inspection. Through the inspection. This leader should be a member of the PV team, of the PV unit. Once we have the agenda, the inspection team, and the team leader, it is highly recommended that we create an inspection checklist according to the areas to be inspected or the information requested by the inspectors prior to the inspection. This way, we ensure that all the topics that are included in the agenda are under control. It is also important to notify those company personnel that may be involved in the inspection, not only the PV team, but also the quality assurance teams, the IT team, etc., about the date, the time, the place of the inspections to anticipate possible needs during the inspection. Finally, an inspection area should be established to receive the inspectors and to conduct the inspection. This room shall have telephone connection, projector, and internet connection so that we can access all the files and we can also communicate with the rest of the team if necessary. It shall be cleaned and organized, and ideally a backup room for the preparation of documentation with a specific equipment should also be established. Normally, inspections are conducted in these rooms. However, inspectors may also need to visit or want to visit other PV areas, for example, the PV archive, the server room, etc. So it is to be taken into account and to be prepared for visiting those areas. During the inspection, what to do? We should stay structured, transparent, and in control. It is essential to ensure that the inspection team and all relevant participants are fully available whenever required during the inspection. All company staff should be informed in advance in case they need to become involved in the inspection process. Inspectors should never be left alone. If they request to visit the archive, if they request to visit the PV area or the IT server room, they must be accompanied but all the times. Regarding the employees' behavior during the inspection, there are a few key messages that we should always keep in mind. First of all, everyone should be courteous, professional, and honest when dealing with inspectors. The way we communicate is just as important as the information we provide. It is also important that only one person answers each question. This avoids confusion, prevents contradictory answers, and helps keep communication clear and consistent. When responding answers should be clear, concise, and limited to the specific question asked. In other words, we should keep our explanations brief, focused, and to the point, without providing unnecessary additional information. Another important aspect is attitude. Even if the situation becomes stressful or challenging, employees should never argue with inspectors. It is essential to remain calm and professional at all times. If someone does not know how to answer the question or does not know the answer for the question, they should never guess. The best approach is to say that the information will be reviewed, will be checked, and that a confirmed answer we will provide it afterwards. We should also pay attention to the inspection environment itself. Cleanliness, hygiene, and order should always be maintained, and these details also contribute to the overall impression given during the inspection. In addition, it is very important to take note through the inspection. Keeping a record of questions, requests, comments, and observations can be extremely helpful for follow-up actions and daily review. Finally, at the end of the day, the team should take some minutes to summarize what has been reviewed or has been discussed and to review any instructions, any open points or priorities for the following day. Now, regarding the documentations, there are also several important points to keep in mind during the inspection. First, whenever inspectors request documents for review, copies should be provided promptly and in an organized manner. It is essential to make sure that all documents are complete, up to date, and properly approved. Providing outdated, incomplete, or draft versions can create confusion and may arise unnecessary concerns during the inspection. Version control and traceability must also be maintained at all times. It should be clear which version of each document is being shared and how it fits within the company documents management system. Finally, all original documents or company documentation should not be provided to be taken outside the company. Inspectors may request the documents and, whenever appropriate, receive controlled copies, but documentation should remain under the company's control. At the end of the inspection, a closing meeting is usually held. During this meeting, any remaining question can be clarified, and any points that may have been unclear or left open during the inspection are normally discussed. Once the inspection has finished, the date for sending the inspection report is usually agreed, often during this same closing meeting. The time frame can vary significantly depending on the authority involved. From an internal perspective, it is highly recommended to hold a follow-up meeting after the inspection. This allows the team to review what happened during the inspection, discuss the notes that were taken, and agree on the next steps based on both the inspection itself and the conclusions for the closing meeting. Finally, once the inspection report is received, it usually be carefully reviewed in order to prepare the corresponding responses and corrective actions that may be required. In the response, it is essential to include the deadlines for the corrective actions. So the deadlines for the corrective actions are also to be included in this report. After this report is reviewed by the agency, the inspectors send us an email or something like that, something like an email stating that we can continue with the CAPA plan, or, for example, it can state that a deadline is to be updated, and it includes the explanation, something like that. So they prepare the final report, they send the final report to the marketing authorization holder, the marketing authorization holder prepares the CAPA plan, send the answer to the authority, and if approved, they can start with the CAPA plan. To finalize with these sections, I would like to highlight a few key recommendations. First of all, it is important to be proactive rather than reactive. In other words, preparation should not start only when an inspection is announced. Companies should work on inspection readiness continually, and routine mock inspections can be a very useful way to test processes and identify gaps in advance. Another key is to empower the QPPB. The inspection process very often revolves around this role, so it is essential to be able to demonstrate full oversight and system knowledge and understanding by the QPPB. And it is equally important to have full control over the documentation. This means ensuring robust traceability of both processes and decisions and maintaining a clear, structured evidence trail at all times. Please keep in mind these recommendations. They are very important. Training is another critical area. Technical knowledge is, of course, essential, but on its own, it is not enough. Teams should also be trained in communication skills and stress management, and both can make a significant difference during the inspection. Transparency and credibility are also fundamental. Answers should always be honest and accurate. If something is not known, it should never be guessed or invented. Instead, it is important to show a professional, a transparent attitude, together with a mindset of continuous improvements. Finally, inspection readiness should be built over time. A successful inspection is not the result of last-minute preparation, but rather the reflection of consistent daily work, a strong system, and a company culture that is truly driven by quality. It is also important to emphasize the need to remain up to date with the regulatory framework, as inspectors are likely to review in detail those areas that have recently changed. For example, recently, the following documents have been updated. First of all, we do have the GBP Module 6 Addendum 2. That includes an update of the masking of personal data in individual case report submitted to Hydrovigilance. In second place, we do have the Commission Implementation Regulation number 1460 of 2025 that amends the Commission Implemented Regulations number 520 of 2012 and introduces changes related to the PSMF, to outsourced activity to third parties, ultravigilance, the quality system for pharmacovigilance activities, signals, ICCRs, and PGRs, among others. It is important to note that this regulation 520 of 2012 will apply including the changes identified in the regulations 2025 1466. So both documents are to be read in parallel. In the third place, we do have the GBP Module 6, the Addendum 1. Sorry, the GBP Module 16, Module 1, Addendum 1, that introduces clarifications and reformants on how to design, implement, evaluate, and document risk minimization measures. And finally, we do have the GBP Product or Population Specific Considerations 3, that places greater emphasis on the collection, follow-up, and assessment of safety data in pregnancy and breastfeeding women and in child exposed in utero or via breast milk. Let's continue with the key points that are to be reviewed for the inspection. We will start with the PSMF. Well, the PSMF provides an overview of a company's PV system, which may be requested and assessed by the competent authorities during a marketing authorization application or in the post-authorization phase of medicinal products authorized in the European Union. There are a number of important aspects to be considered in relation to the PSMF. First of all, the location of the PSMF. It must be clear. This refers to the place where the main pharmacovigilance activities are conducted or where the QPPV is located. Inspectors will expect this to be clearly identified and fully consistent with the information included in the system documentation. Another important point in the PSMF is the PSMF code in XMPD. The association between the PSMF code and the medicinal products must be accurate and properly maintained. Inspectors will also pay close attention to how the pharmacovigilance system is prepared, including the relevant PV agreements. These agreements should clearly describe roles, responsibilities, and the way activities are allocated between parties involved. In addition, the organization of the PSMF and the knowledge of its contents are critical. The document should be well-structured, easy to navigate, and those responsible for the system should be familiar with its content and should be able to explain it clearly during the inspection. From a practical perspective, the format of the PSMF is also important. It should be maintained in an electronic format or in another format that can be easily printed if needed. Documentation must be readable, complete, accessible, and supported by proper trace traceability. And there are also some additional aspects that should be always keep in mind. The QPPV should be informed of any relevant changes, especially those that may affect the pharmacovigilance system or the content of the PSMF. And importantly, it should always be remembered that the ultimate responsibility remains with the marketing authorization holder, even when activities are delegated to third parties. Another important area to consider are the company's SOPs. During the pharmacovigilance inspection, inspectors do not only look at pharmacovigilance activities themselves, they also review the quality system that support those activities. In other words, there must be a quality system in place that adequately supports the pharmacovigilance system. When it comes to SOPs, it is essential to ensure that they truly describe the activities that are actually performed in practice. they should not simply be a copy-paste of the legislation. Instead, they should explain the process in a clearly and practical way so that even someone new to the company could understand how to carry out the activity described without needing additional explanation. In that sense, SOPs should be easy to read and easy to understand, and they should contain enough detail to allow the activity to be reproduced as described. And it is also important to maintain an up-to-date list of SOP as well as to clearly define how often they are reviewed and updated. Another important aspect is training. It is essential to have a training SOP that defines the different training levels according to each job description. Not all employees recall the same time of the training. The procedure should also describe the initial pharmacovigilance training for a new employee joining the company. And in addition, it should describe the frequency of the training methods, how the training is going to be assessed to confirm that it has been properly understood. For training activities, there should also be an annual training plan covering all the training sections to be conducted during the year. In addition to having a training procedure and an annual training plan, it is equally important to ensure that all training activities are properly documented. Training records should be maintained for every session, and these records should include key details such as the training program, the date, the name of the employee, the role, the signature, the duration of the training, etc. These records should be signed by the QPPV or the person responsible for pharmacovigilance. For external courses, certificate of attendance should also be kept as part of the documentation. Finally, training should be include an evaluation component. In most cases, this is done by a test or knowledge assessment. Another important area to consider are the pharmacovigilance activities. First of all, it is essential to have an SOP in place that describes the full management process and the workflow of these agreements. What is to be included in the agreements, the pharmacovigilance agreements? Well, we should have the medicinal products, the territory, the effective date, the responsibilities, and according to the update of the legal framework, we should also include the obligation of third parties to accept audits by the marketing authorization holder or on its behalf, as well as inspections by the competent authorities. And if the parties subcontract PV activities, prior writing authorization from the marketing authorization holder is required. Another key area during a pharmacovigilance inspection is case management. Here we do have the different aspects to be taken into account. First of all, the format. It is important to differentiate whether cases are managed in an electronic database or in a paper-based system. We should also have proper control over the global safety database, and where applicable, have a database validation report readily available. From a process perspective, all steps of case handling should be reviewed carefully. This includes the initial triage, the medical coding, medical assessment, data entry, and submission to the competent authorities. It is especially important to retain their knowledge confirming that the submission has been completed. Reconciliations should also be reviewed. And in addition, special situations and the follow-up process are also to be reviewed. Documentation should be properly ordered and classified, with the personal data anonymized. Sorry. Here do we have the definition of day zero that I didn't tell before, that it is also to be taken into account. To finalize with this webinar, we do have the most common inspection findings. For example, As potential critical findings, we do have that the human resources available to the pharmacovigilance system and the quality system are insufficient for the proper functioning. In a second place, we do have that the QPPV does not have the appropriate training and qualifications to perform the role and to assume the associated responsibilities. Another potential finding is that pharmacovigilance training is not being provided to all marketing authorization holders employee. And to finalize with these potential critical findings, we have that there is not quality system in place to support pharmacovigilance activities. As potential major findings, we do have that many pharmacovigilance activities are not covered by written procedures, or that no pre-qualification activities or audits are conducted for affiliates or distributors, and that most pharmacovigilance agreements with distributors and affiliates are not updated with the current more contact details. As potential minor findings, we do have that there is not an oversight by the QPPV to ensure that all personnel are trained in pharmacovigilance. We can also find deficiencies in the annexes to the PCMF. For example, failure to include the organizational chart of the PV unit. Deficiencies in the PV agreements, for example, failure to specify the marketing authorization holder email address to which information, safety information, must be sent. And in the last place, we have that the SOP for the management of observed cases does not include all special situations and populations. Here we do have the inspection landing page. So visit our dedicated pharmacovigilance inspection live page to explore key insights, expert guidance, and practical resources on inspections, readiness, and compliance. Thank you very much.